Okay, Knotcraft nuggets. Here we go. Figure 8 on a Bight. I want a small tail, but a palm's width. The official answer is, or 6 times the diameter of the cord that you have. That's the official answer, but if you go with a palm's width, then even your thickest ropes that are 1/2 inch or 12.5 millimeters will suffice. So palm's width. As I tie this, I pop one strand over the other to dress it. And now I have just enough tail that I need coming out, so I haven't wasted anything. And the gain, this is what we call the gain, and we want this gain to be no larger than what we're actually going to put inside of it, whether we're tying that around a harness or something. Figure 8 on a Bight is a terminal end knot. It's not a midline knot. These are kind of falling out of favor in the rescue service for a lot of reasons, and one of them is this, where we don't want this rotation in the carabiner, because if it gets loaded, that's on the gate, that's called cross loading, not to be confused with side loading, and we don't want that. Also, if I took like a longer Bight somewhere on down the line and did my figure 8 on a Bight, and I had like a long tail, I wouldn't want to treat this as like a double long tail bowline in a litter package, because this knot doesn't want to be loaded this way. This is called loading and expansion. That leads to capsizing and severe weakening of the knot because of the bends. So again, the figure 8 on a Bight is not a midline knot. So some people say, you back up all your knots with safeties and stoppers. Well, no, if you don't know what you're doing, yes, but on the vast majority of knots, you don't need a backup knot or a safety knot. So figure 8 on a Bight. So there's a little twist in there. I pop one strand over the other to dress it. Okay, so this knot does not need a backup. And even if there was concern about this piece unraveling or coming out, well, what happens when you do that? You end up with a directional figure 8, which is a midline knot. It can only be loaded in that direction, not back on itself. So a butterfly is a better option than a directional figure 8. It's more versatile, gives you more options. If one of the strands comes out of your figure 8 and a Bight, you're left with a directional 8 and you're fine. So nothing to worry about there. A better option for the terminal end of a rope connected to a single person, so I'm just going to take a Bight here. This is called the barrel noose, and there's 2 of them. There's a 2-wrap barrel noose. This is commonly known as Poachers Knot. Again, this is smaller cordage, so I don't really need much tail. This chokes up on your object a lot better, but your object has to be small enough. It can't be like a huge tree, because then it won't cinch down on itself. But like a small carabiner, if you look at just the size relationship, it works really well. So, and now this is not gonna twist on itself, and it will always be loaded along the spine. For single person terminal ends, we like this knot better. Plus what's great about this is when it's all said and done, I can just take my hand and pop that out and pop it loose. So that was a 2-wrap barrel noose, also known as a poacher's knot. Let's do a 3-wrap. It's just the same. So take the Bight, start wrapping from around my thumb back towards my hand, and that's 3. And this is called a scaffold knot, as opposed to a poacher's knot. They're both barrel nooses. They both do the exact same thing. They say one's a little stronger than the other, but really, who cares? They do the same thing. Oh, one more thing on the figure 8. So they say, oh, well, the way you tie it, the direction that you go, like, affects its strength and this and that. Well, let's talk about what really affects strength in a knot is the degree of bend that you make. We did a slow pull test to failure on this knot. In all likelihood, the point of failure is going to occur at the first bend it makes, so probably right there, because this is the tensioned line. As it comes in and makes that first bend, right there is where it's going to fail most of the time and break. There's some people that say this is unsafe because this is all loosey-goosey and you should tie it in another direction, but if this standing and tensioned end was this instead, if you look at the degree of bend, right here is a more gradual bend than what this would be if it was tensioned. Instead, this is a tighter bend. So whatever, teach their own. Are we going to nitpick this all day? I'm not. I don't really care enough. But for anybody that says, oh yeah, because this is loose, it doesn't cinch up, yeah, who cares? It's actually stronger. And what I mean when they say you're tying it wrong or the wrong way or the wrong direction. So I took my the tension side and wrapped it down and then tied my knot. So, but if I did it the other way and now my tension side was down here, let's see what happens. And people argue that this is the better way to tie the knot. Really, who cares? We just want to make sure that it's dressed as tied appropriately. And so now, as this is loaded, it bites down on this tail. But the flip side, this tension side actually sees a sharper bend than what this would have been if it were tension. This is a more gradual bend. So when we talk about strength, but who cares? Because if we're so concerned about the strength of this failing for life safety applications, we're in the wrong business. We should get out. All right, so somebody says, okay, tie me a butterfly knot, pick a point anywhere along the rope, tie it right there. I want the loop to be right there. Say, okay, well, you want the loop to be right here. I can set that up by holding the bight in the palm of my hand and knowing that the loop is going to be a little bit down and closer to my body, and I'm going to do a round turn and get that loop so it's facing the palm of my hand. And I do one more turn but cross over everything, and then take that loop and bring it up over, shove it under everything, and pops out the other side. And I just hold on. That's my reference point. This is just a way. That's the way I like to tie them. They're great. Let's join 2 ropes together in line. All this is a Euro death knot. Flat overhand bend or Euro death knot, just to pinpoint my loop, what's going to be my loop, and I do the butterfly all over again. Get that out. Shove that underneath. Cinch everything up. And let's take my reference marker, my flat overhand bend out. And now this is an easy knot to untie after it's loaded. Let me just dress that so you can see. And I only have to pass a small space as opposed to tying a double fisherman's or a Flemish bend or something like that. Constrictor hitch, a couple ways to do this. I'm going to make a round turn, flip the other way, make another round turn. One of these ends I don't need, it's a little too much, it's excess, so I'm going to get that out. And now I have a constrictor. So you can see right there. There we go. Constrictor hitch. For those that are familiar with an aerial view of Big Cottonwood Canyon Road, there's the S-turns right here. And so I have a tail, a bite, a tail, a tail. And I take the bites of my thumbs and my hands have the tails, and I overlap the bites over the tails and fold it like a sandwich, and then slip this over my object, and I have a constrictor. Cool. We can do the Italian, HMS, Munter, they're all the same thing. Let's go on the darker strands. All right, 1 in the same direction, 2, cross them over, that's a clove, fold them in half, either or is your Italian hitch. Everybody in the rest of the world, they all say Italian hitch. Americans are the only ones that say Munter. For the super Munters, like that trident shape, just like with your standard Munter. So there's 1, 2 in the same direction, okay, 3, all in the same direction. Whichever way I fold, I just need to continue that fold. So starting left, I fold like I would a regular Munter, just like that. And then this one, I continue and come around just like that. And now, when I clip that in, you see the classic little trident start to form. So let's see if I can get this tight so you can actually see the trident a little bit better. Okay, so there you go. That's what it looks like on the back side, front side. So easy way to tie that for heavier loads. So it puts the initial twist in and then it untwists again as it comes back out. It's just higher friction. Let's go back to the butterfly real quick. So butterflies are good because they can be loaded in any direction. So I can load this strand, and this 3 ways, no problem. I can bring this butterfly down and load this way along with this, no problem, or up like this, no problem. What I want to avoid doing with a butterfly is bringing the tails together and then loading it that way, because weakening can occur and you can, some sort of capsizing can occur. It's not really meant to be loaded like that. So that's a limitation on the butterfly, but otherwise perfectly fine, capable, fantastic knot. An overhand knot is an inherently weak and bad choice for a stopper knot because it's prone to coming unraveling. There's a big gap here. It doesn't seal up very well. No point in tying an overhand as a stopper knot and thinking that like you're it's going to be an effective stopper knot. Or the effective stopper knots are barrel knots or double overhand knots. We make that X pattern and then we pull through and then cinch it up. That's a better stopper knot. This should be your stopper knot for everything all the time. Not many knots need a stopper knot, but one of them that does is a simple bowline without a Yosemite retrace finish. It's just a normal regular bowline. So let's go inside, get the tail through. Let's see, about to there. Okay, if I just left it at that, I would want a stopper knot for sure. And when we tie stopper knots, we want our stopper knots to be butt up against the main knot. We don't want any gaps anywhere. And so when I want to dress this up and cinch it so that there's no space, so this can't slide anywhere. That's an effective stopper knot. Some people will tie loose stopper knots further up, like way up here, and they start it. I don't have enough to do the barrel knot, but you just assume that that was a barrel knot. Or some people just do that and say, oh yeah, it's my stopper knot, but we don't want that gap there. We want this to be flush up against our knot. In another video, I did the bowline and then showed you that it was the same thing as a Becket bend. But let's just start slow. Take a bite. Doesn't matter how I do this. And we don't just tie Becket bends on their own. In rescue, we tie rescue Beckets or double Beckets with a Yosemite retrace finish. So I take the bite in my hand. My thumb is like the marker or the reference point. I go up, around. This is a track and this is the tunnel. I feed it through the tunnel. If I didn't feed through the tunnel and I went back down this way, this would kind of be like, that's like your square knot. And this is your sheet bend right there, sheet bend. Once again, around, following through, that's a double sheet or double Becket bend. And then I want a little bit of slack here to Yosemite retrace this yellow strand back up in the direction of the other Bight strands to complete my rescue Becket bend. Dress it up just like that. Okay, yeah, let's do square knots. The subtle difference. So this is why square knots are kind of dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. All right, so your standard square knot. Sorry, let's see. Okay, yes, this is a square knot because if we tension these 2 points, they're on the same level and the 2 tails are on the same level opposite. And this is an effective square knot. Yes, you do need backup knots on the square knot, but let's see if we tied it differently. So right here, we have the tails coming out the top. If we alternate and say, well, I'm gonna have like a tail coming out the other side. Let's see what happens that way. So here, if you look, we have, let me just condense that down. Okay, it looks like a square knot, but the tails are on opposites. They aren't on the same level, and vice versa. And so when I pull, this is a thief's knot. It does not. It just keeps rolling until it breaks apart. So square knots can be dangerous. There's a lot of videos on how to do Prusiks, or sorry, Purcell Prusiks. They're usually made with 6mm cordage, but you can make them with anything. Like 8mm is fine too. But we usually use it for 6mm because it's always doubled up. So Purcell Prusik is a Prusik on a Prusik or a poor man's adjustable lanyard that has a lot of uses and it's very cheap. And how much length do you need? Well, it's up to you. This is about 2 arm spans, and about 2 arm spans is probably suitable for most things you do. Sometimes you want longer ones if you want to do like a litter bridle or something like that. I'm going to find the midpoint. And other videos like show you kind of how to do this with one hand where you wrap and then you bring it together and everything. I find that that can be kind of cumbersome. So for me, I just like to go with both hands and I just start wrapping once, twice, 3 times. Now, some people say, okay, that's fine. You can start your Purcells with a 6-pack of donuts or a 3-wrap Prusik. So let's dress this and see what it looks like. This kind of looks like your standard Prusik. When we say 6-pack, what we mean is we have, here's the bridge. This is the bridge. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 6-pack of donuts. This is a 3-on-3 or symmetric Prusik. So we have, if we split our strands coming out, we have 1, 2, 3 on 1, 2, 3. So 3-on-3 symmetric Prusik. We like to tie our Purcells to be asymmetric. So 3-on-2. So once I have my 6-pack of donuts, I just drop one inside strand out and I get rid of that twist. So I don't tie this 6mm in a cord or in a sling first, because if I do and then I drop one of these out to make a 3-on-2, it creates an inherent twist in my Purcell. So I want to wait to tie my cordage in a loop until I've done that. So it's now 1, 2, 3 on 1, 2. And depending on which side I dropped out, since I dropped the one on the right out, I'm gonna have to take these tails and feed it from the side that I dropped it out on. So since I dropped it out on the right side, I'm gonna feed these tails in from the right. And I just go through the loop. And then I'm just gonna bring this all the way up, and I can worry about dressing this later after I've tied the loop in. So I'm just gonna, this is just a placeholder for the 3-on-2 Purcell right there. Now I'm gonna move over to this side. And here we have a bunch of options. We like to not put a fixed knot here. We just like to take the 2 strands and just do like your standard Prusik, where you just do your double fisherman's and call it good. And this gives us some flexibility, the ability to kind of adjust where we want that loop. I have tied my loop. I've reduced the number of twists that exist inherently in my Purcell. And now I can adjust how big I want this loop. I can size this up by Prusicking this around a rope. And then with the excess, if I want it to be precise, I can then dial this back and forward to make this loop exactly how I want it by dressing the rest. That's why we like to do it this way. You'll see other people that want a fixed loop, and that's fine. There's no right or wrong. So right here, I'm basically taking one strand longer in a bight and then the tail of the other, and I'm gonna fix this by tying a frost knot. So a frost figure 8. I'm gonna try to keep it as dressed as possible while I tie this, because I'm OCD about how the knot looks when it's all said and done. So I'm gonna start popping this over and this over in an attempt to get it dressed as I tie it. Pull all these strands through, try to make it look a little cleaner. Okay, so, and that's your frost knot figure 8. The loop here is pretty small, so this is ideal for just like if you dedicated, just want to use like a carabiner in here on like a long tail, or the loop of a long tail bowline. And then you can use this for pickoffs, or you could retie this knot, but with more of a bite here, so you can actually Prusik this around a rope. I'm gonna untie this and let's revisit the butterfly. So I'll start off with like a really fast, slick way to do this is I just hold the cord in my hand and I make a round turn. And the direction that I made this round turn, it's kind of important because I can do a round turn this way or a round turn this way. So if I do a round turn starting with the cord that's closest to my body and make that round turn, the loop of my butterfly is going to be here. And so all I do is I make a round turn, and then I have to twist this in one direction or another. And the direction that I twist this is completely dependent upon the direction that I made this round turn. Since I made the round turn from my body, or from my pinky, into my palm, I have to twist this up to the sky. And then I'm going to open my fingers, slide that loop in. Can you see that? So let's back out. Round turn. Take this. Make that twist towards the sky, slide it through my fingers, take that where the midpoint of my loop is for the butterfly, stuff it under all that. And I know I've tied it right. If you can see on the back, you can see the X that makes the butterfly. That's a really cool, slick way to do it. However, it does have a downside. And the downside is that if you got the order wrong and you made your round turn, and then instead of flipping up, you flipped down and did the same thing, this is not a butterfly, even though it looks like a butterfly. If you look on the back, these strands don't cross over, and this loop can just pop out like that. So I suspect that that's probably why when people teach other people how to tie butterflies, they don't like to do that method, even though it's quick and slick. That's kind of why they like to do these strands, and then they cross over everything else. So the next best thing is probably to do that. So again, I start with the cord that's closest to my pinky or my body, and I wrap once. This is going to be the loop of my butterfly. I wrap again, but I cross over everything this time. And I take that last strand, bring it up, feed it through. And if I do that every time, I'm going to get it right. There's going to be a cross on the back. So it guarantees that you're not going to mess it up. Whereas the other method, yeah, you can mess it up. And then the last method of tying it, taking that big loop and then doing the twists. Some people prefer this. I don't. It's just kind of a lot to kind of landmark. It doesn't matter which way I twist, and it doesn't matter which way I fold this in. Now I can go up or down, but I have to pinpoint that hole that I made. That's kind of why I don't prefer it doing it this way. But either way, you'll still end up with that cross pattern and get your butterfly.